It's 2:14 a.m., and you're standing in your bedroom in socks, looking at a treadmill you bought 11 months ago that has become, permanently and without a vote, a clothes rack. You didn't get up to look at the treadmill. You got up because you couldn't sleep. And you couldn't sleep because of a number you saw at dinner that you haven't been able to put down since. Colin, from 2 departments over, was showing everyone his new house. 3,200 square feet, 3-car garage. A sectional the size of a boat slip. Colin makes $145,000 a year as a senior project manager. You make $68,000 teaching 6th grade math. By the time you get to the 10th rule tonight, you're going to understand exactly why the person at that table making less than half of what Colin makes is the one who actually sleeps. You'd assumed Colin's life was simply the better one. Bigger house, better TV, a driveway that photographs well. Nobody ever shows you the other side of Colin's ledger. Nobody shows you 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, when the mortgage, the boat payment, the storage unit off to 85, and the second car loan, all clearing within 9 minutes of each other, and the checking account holds its breath. You're not doing this audit because you're cheap. You're doing it because somewhere between the dinner table and your own bedroom, you started suspecting something. More stuff and a better life were never actually the same sentence. You want to know, item by item, what it's been costing you to believe they were. Colin had said something else at dinner, almost as an aside, that you didn't think about until just now. I don't even know the last time I sat down and just did nothing in that living room. He'd laughed when he said it, like it was a joke about being busy. Standing here at 2 a.m. in a 900 square foot apartment, that costs a third of what his mortgage does. It doesn't sound like a joke anymore. It sounds like a confession nobody clocked as one, including him. Rule 1. Everything you own costs money twice. The treadmill cost $800 the day you bought it. That's the first cost. The transaction. Nobody tells you about the second one. The ownership tax, storage, maintenance, insurance, the mental bandwidth of just having to look at the thing, and underneath all of it, the quiet one. Opportunity cost. You do the math standing right there in your socks. Your building runs about $30 a square foot a year. That treadmill eats 20 square feet of floor. 20 times 30 is $600 a year. Just to house a machine you now use exclusively for hanging laundry. 5 years of that is $3,000. Rent, paid in full for a piece of equipment holding your least favorite sweater. You look around the rest of the room. How much of this square footage is renting space to things you haven't touched in 90 days? You are, quite literally, paying your landlord to store junk. That's next. You crouch down and actually check. Not from memory, from the closet itself. A pasta maker still in its box. A rolled-up yoga mat you bought during a 2-week phase 18 months ago. A stand mixer attachment you've genuinely never opened. None of it is expensive on its own. All of it together is quietly renting square footage from you every single month. The same way the treadmill has been, and you'd never once added it up until tonight. Rule 2. Run the replacement test. Here's the question, and you have to be honest with it. If this item vanished into thin air tonight, would you spend your own money to replace it tomorrow? The bread maker in your cabinet? No. The heels that pinch your toes at the back of your closet? No. The third set of guest towels nobody's used since your cousin visited 2 Christmases ago? Absolutely not. These aren't possessions. They're zombie assets. Zero utility. Full demand. You have to clean them, store them, move them every time you relocate. Visual clutter like this measurably raises stress and eats into the exact mental bandwidth you'd need to figure out how to actually grow your income. You think about the last time you moved, 18 months ago, and the 4 hours you spent wrapping and boxing things you then unpacked once, looked at, and put directly into a closet. You paid a mover $85 an hour to relocate a bread maker across town. You've never once said that sentence out loud before tonight, and hearing it in your own head is almost enough on its own. The truly comfortable people you know don't have overflowing junk drawers. They have inventory control. But I might need it someday, you think? Holding the bread maker. You won't. If you haven't needed it in a year, you won't need it in 5. And if you're wrong, the someday tax of buying it back is still cheaper than the everyday tax of storing it for a decade. You start a pile on the bed anyway. It's smaller than you expected and somehow heavier to look at than it should be. Proof, item by item, of a version of you that kept meaning to become someone who baked bread, wore heels, hosted guests. Rule 3, watch the multiplier. Colin's new house isn't just a bigger mortgage. It's an ecosystem. More square footage means more to heat, more to insure, more property tax, and a low, constant pressure to fill the extra rooms with more stuff to justify having bought them. A boat needs a trailer. A trailer needs a hitch-equipped SUV. The SUV needs a bigger garage. The bigger garage needs more insurance. For every dollar spent on a major status purchase, you're quietly signing up for something like 30 more cents a year in recurring cost. Forever. Attached to it like a second mortgage nobody itemized for you. The people who are actually building something don't buy that way. They buy isolated assets. An index fund doesn't need a trailer. A high-yield savings account has never once needed an oil change. You think about Colin's boat, the one he mentioned once at lunch and never again, sitting under a cover somewhere behind that 3-car garage. You wonder if he's done this math, or if the multiplier is just quietly running in the background of his life, the way it was running in yours, invisible until you actually go looking for it. You've never bought a boat, but you bought a $340 espresso machine 2 years ago that needed a $60 grinder to be worth using, which needed a scaling solution every 3 months, which needed a filter subscription you forgot to cancel until just now. Sitting here doing the math. $12 a month on autopay for 18 months for a machine you use maybe twice a week. The multiplier doesn't care how big the original purchase was. It just compounds off whatever you hand it. Rule 4. Never upgrade out of boredom. Half the economy runs on convincing you your perfectly functional phone is a relic. The forensic version of the question is simpler than the ad campaign. Does it still do the thing it's for? Does the 2022 phone make calls and run your apps? Then it hasn't failed. Does the car get you from the school parking lot to the grocery store safely? Then it hasn't failed either. The average phone gets replaced every 2.5 years. Stretch that to 5 and invest the difference instead. And over a career, that's something like $40,000 sitting in an account instead of a drawer of dead phones. You think of a guy your dad used to work with, drove the same Accord for 11 years, got called cheap at every holiday party. He crossed $2 million in net worth at 42. The people laughing at him are still 5 years into 7-year car loans. Your own phone is a 2022 model with a hairline crack in the corner you've been meaning to fix for 8 months. It still makes calls. It still runs your grading app and your banking app and the group chat where your sister keeps sending you real estate listings you can't afford. By the rule's own definition, it hasn't failed. You'd been treating the crack like a countdown timer. It's just a crack. Rule 5. Put friction between you and your money. You don't have a willpower problem. You have an access problem. One-click ordering, a saved card, a buy now, pay later button built specifically to hide what the true cost actually is. If you want to keep money, you have to put the friction back in on purpose. Delete the apps, make yourself walk to a laptop and type a password like it's 2011 again. The 72-hour rule. Anything non-essential over $50 waits 3 days before you're allowed to buy it. Something like 90% of I need this feelings are gone within 48 hours. Which tells you most of what you need to know about how real they were. You unsubscribe from 4 retailer emails right there in bed. Thumb moving faster than you expected it to. Your inbox, it turns out, has been running its own quiet multiplier this whole time. Every 48 hours left subject line, a tiny piece of friction removed on someone else's behalf. Never yours. We're at the halfway mark now, 5 rules down, 5 to go. And this is usually where a video like this starts feeling like a lecture instead of a plan. So, here's the turn. The first 5 rules were about stopping the bleeding. The next 5 are about where the money actually goes once it stops leaving. Rule 6. Make saving the frictionless part instead. Flip everything from Rule 5. Your 401k or brokerage contribution should happen the second your paycheck lands, automatically, before you ever see the number. If the money never technically passes through your hands, you can't spend it on inventory you'll donate in 3 years. You already have a 403b through the district, matched at 3%, and you've never once increased your contribution above the minimum because raising it always felt like something you'd get to eventually, on a calmer month that never actually arrived. You open the portal right there on your phone and bump it 2 percentage points. It takes 40 seconds. You'd been avoiding it for 2 years. Rule 7. Define enough before you start earning more. Without a number for enough, your life expands to swallow every raise you're ever given. This is the entire mechanism behind people earning $250,000 a year who still feel broke. High earners who need almost everything they make just to maintain the inventory of their own lives. Colin's $145,000 doesn't make him free. It makes him a very well-paid pass-through, account for the bank, the insurance company, and the storage unit off the highway. You've never once written your number down. You do it now, on the Notes app, sitting on the edge of the bed next to the pile that used to be your closet. A figure that covers rent, the essentials, one trip a year, and nothing else pretending to be essential. It's smaller than you expected. It's also the first number all night that made your shoulders actually drop. Rule 8. Measure it in optionality, not accumulation. Real wealth isn't the square footage. It's the ability to walk away. From a bad boss, from a job that's wrong for you, from a city for 6 months, to be with a parent who's sick. If your money is locked into a 5,000 square foot house and an SUV payment, your optionality is 0. You're not the owner of that garage. You're indentured to it. Having a lot of stuff is one kind of rich. Having a lot of time is a completely different one. You don't get to have both until you stop trading one for the other. You think about the district's early retirement plan, the one you've never once looked at because it always felt like something for people 20 years further along than you. For the first time tonight, it doesn't feel irrelevant. It feels like a door that's been sitting there unlocked the whole time, behind a stack of boxes you just hadn't gotten around to moving. You do a rough count in your head. Years until that door opens if nothing changes, versus years if the pile on your bed turns into a habit instead of a one-night audit. The gap between those two numbers is bigger than you expected, and none of it depended on a raise your district was ever actually going to give you. Rule 9. One in, one out. New shoes mean an old pair leaves the closet, sold, or donated same week. New kitchen gadget, one leaves the counter. It's a small rule, almost annoyingly simple, and it forces one real question onto every purchase. Is this actually better than the best thing I already own? Most of the time, honestly, it isn't. This single habit alone kills a genuinely large share of impulse spending, just by making you look at what you already have before you're allowed to add to it. Rule 10. Rent it before you own it. Most hobbies die in the first month. The woodworking phase, the camping phase, the phase where you were absolutely going to start running. That one bought the treadmill back in a January that felt, at the time, like the start of something permanent. Don't buy the gear for a phase. Rent it, borrow it, use it 3 or 4 times. If you're still doing it after 90 days, then it's earned a place in the inventory math. Most of the time, it won't get that far, and your garage never becomes a graveyard for a version of you that lasted 3 weeks. You almost laugh, sitting there. The treadmill lasted 6 days as an actual treadmill. It's been a clothes rack for the other 330. Add it up the way you did standing there at 2 a.m., treadmill in front of you like evidence. Cutting the storage tax, the treadmill, the bread maker, the guest towels nobody's used, is worth something like $300 a month once it's actually sold instead of just judged. Killing the boredom upgrades on phones and cars is another $400. Ending the maintenance multiplier, the boat, the extra vehicle nobody needed, is $300 more. The 72-hour rule on impulse buys closes it out around $200. $1,200 a month. Put that into a plain, boring index fund, and 20 years from now, you're looking at something in the neighborhood of $820,000. Not from a promotion, not from a side hustle, just from refusing to let the thing sitting in your apartment keep quietly pickpocketing your future. You're not going to hit all 4 categories this month, or probably this year. You don't have a boat to sell or a second car payment to kill, but you have a treadmill, a bread maker, 4 unworn dresses, and an inbox that's been quietly multiplying your spending for longer than you want to admit. That's a start, and a start compounds the same way $1,200 does, just slower. From wherever you actually are, instead of the version of the math built for someone with a boat, Colin has the sectional and the 3-car garage. You have a portfolio that started this month paying you back instead of the other way around. And a level of stomach quiet at 2 a.m. that no square footage has ever once produced. You list the treadmill on Marketplace the next morning. Somebody picks it up by Thursday, cash, $310. You don't spend it. You open the brokerage app you downloaded on a whim in January and never funded. And for the first time, you put money into it instead of just staring at the empty balance. It isn't much. It's a start. The first thing you've owned in a while that's actually supposed to grow instead of just sit there, depreciating in your bedroom, waiting to be stepped around. You go back to bed. The room looks almost exactly the same as it did at 2 a.m. Same walls, same water stain by the window you've been meaning to mention to your landlord for a year. The difference is invisible to anyone who isn't you. 20 square feet of floor that used to be a treadmill, and now, for the first time in 11 months, is just floor. You sleep through the night. You don't think about Colin's house again until Thursday, when someone mentions he's looking at a fourth car, and this time it doesn't land the way it used to. It just sounds like more rooms to heat. What's sitting in your apartment right now that you'd never buy again if you had to choose today?